welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new, my name is Carson and I adore horror fiction. It's been a goal of mine this year to read a lot more than I have been in years past. I used to be a voracious reader, kind of fell off the reading wagon for a while. I am back on it full force again. I have been devouring books this year, and a lot of those books have been horror fiction books. And I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings to share about some of the ones that I have read. In case you missed it, I've already reviewed 2 books already. One, Fantastic Land, you can check out my video for that. And my second review was for Salem's Lot, a classic by Stephen King. Today I'm back with another book to review. This one is episode 13 by Craig DeLuy, or DeLuy, not 100% sure on pronunciation. Sorry if I completely butchered it, but here is the cover in all of its glory, and this is the book we'll be discussing today. So, how did I come to find this book? You can see that I have not pulled the buy one, get one 50% off sticker from Barnes & Noble off of this book. So, if you were here for my Fantastic Land review, you know that that was one of the books that I also used this buy one, get one 50% off deal for. I was in the bookstore with my husband and my cousin, and it was actually my husband that pointed out both Fantastic Land and this book as ones that I might be interested in, and so that's how I came in possession of this book. Right off the bat, I want to talk about the style of this book. This is a very easy read, not because it's like a simplistic plot or anything, but because it is not a narrative written beginning, middle, end like a lot of books are. This one comes in the forms of transcripts from video footage, email conversations, text conversations, and some journals of some of the characters. So there's really not a narrative plot in the way that you normally get in a book, and that one made this like so easy for me to devour. I breezed through this book so quickly. I think I read this one in just a matter of days, and it's a pretty thick book. I can't remember exactly how many pages it is. Let me take a look here. Yeah, this was 433 pages, and it definitely went by in a flash for me because of the writing style of it. Like I said, a lot of this book is transcripts of video footage because this book is centered around a ghost hunting program. And one of the things that really stood out to me about this book is that there were references to other ghost hunting programs such as Ghost Hunters. I am a little disappointed that they didn't actually reference Ghost Adventures, because my husband and I have gotten into that show recently, and it is genuinely the most unhinged thing I've ever seen. It is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. One of the ones where, of course, like something happens and someone gets possessed like every episode. I'm sorry, Zach Bagans, don't come for me, but I really like your show. It's really funny, but I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a reference to that one in here. But this is about a ghost hunting team, and the show that is the center of this book is called Fade to Black. So in the universe of this book, Fade to Black is a relatively new ghost hunting program, and they're kind of trying to find their way in the world, and we are kind of saturated in like the real world with so many different ghost hunting programs, and they kind of touch a little bit on that where they kind of want to make a name for themselves. And the team of Fade to Black does have a bit of a gimmick that sets them apart from the other shows mentioned within the text of this book. 2 of the team members are a married couple, Matt and Claire. Matt is a diehard believer in the paranormal, and Claire is not. Now, I'm sure there is actually a show that exists like this. Well, in fact, I can think of one. If you ever watched BuzzFeed Unsolved with Shane Madej and Ryan Bergara, and now they're on their new channel, they have Ghost Files. I'm a huge fan of Shane and Ryan. Me and my husband both are. It's kind of that sort of same premise, but a little bit more serious than Ghost Files or BuzzFeed Unsolved. So Claire is very much a scientifically minded person, and Matt is a true believer, like I said, and they have surrounded themselves with some other individuals on their team. One of the other team members goes by the name of Jessica, although that is not her real name. Her real name is Rashida. She's kind of the face to appeal to the masses on the internet. She's kind of more of the social media presence, the one doing little vlogs from the sets when they do their investigations. So she's kind of like the personable one, the one that people will be drawn in by to watch the program. One of their other team members is Kevin. He is a former cop. cop. He's kind of like perceives himself to be tough, no nonsense. He had an experience with the paranormal when he was a cop that kind of sent him down this path into wanting to know more. And you also have Jake, their cameraman. But really the stars of the show are Matt and Claire because of the dynamic of they are a married couple, they work well together, but one really does believe in this and one does not. One wants to find the scientific explanation for any perceived paranormal activity. Without giving too much away, the loose plot of this is that they've already filmed several episodes that are ready to air for the program or the network that they will be showing their show Fade to Black on, but they're working on an episode now that is kind of like their white whale that they were going after, and it is in a location called the Foundation House. Foundation House rose to fame because of the alleged activities that took place there in the 1970s. There was already, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, already some alleged paranormal things going on there, but the scientific research group got a hold of it and they wanted to conduct experiments kind of loosely connected to paranormal happenings, but also with the goal to kind of unlock the potential of the human mind. Maybe there were some drugs involved. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue surrounding what this group actually did. Think kind of like the Dharma Initiative from Lost, if you ever watched that. It kind of reminded me a lot of something like that. The actual truth of what happened at Foundation House is a mystery, and that's part of the reason why they wanted to go to this location, the team of Fade to Black. And there's also some talk of different apparitions that may or may not actually be at this location. So the conflict lies in what was actually going on here, and was there anything paranormal going on, or was this just a weird group of hippies doing experiments? And of course the rumor mill started going, and all of this has been wildly blown out of proportion. That's really all I can say about the plot without giving too much away. Other conflicts arise, especially between Matt and Claire, not even just because of their difference in opinion, but there are some probable changes that are going to be happening within the crew and dynamics of the show if Fade to Black does become a hit. Like I said, I can't get into too much else because that would be giving away way too much of what happened within this book. If you do want to know more, stick around to the end of this video. I will be giving some spoilers. If you don't want to know, I will put up my usual warning about stop watching here. But if you're curious as to some more specific details, I'll be getting into that later on in the video. So the plot really intrigued me right off the bat. And like I said, I devoured this book within a matter of days. But once I finished reading this one, I had to set this one aside and walk away from it for a bit. I wanted to jump in and immediately do a review right after I read this. And I read this back in July. And I have waited this long to talk about it because I didn't want to rush out and word this in a way that I might possibly, regret or not completely agree with once I had time to fully digest this book. All that to say, this book was not what I was expecting it to be. So this is what I went into this thinking it was going to be. I thought it was going to be just about some, goofy, kind of silly ghost hunt, with some spooky scenes of paranormal activity happening. They would encounter some ghosts, they would get some evidence. I was really just kind of expecting a run-of-the-mill haunted investigation book. I was excited for that. I have not read a book about a ghost hunting show written via transcripts of the filming process. I was really intrigued. I was hoping that that would be just some fun, silly, and easy summer read entertainment. But that's not what I got from this book. The way that this unfolds and what they end up discovering without really giving anything away didn't stick quite to that goofy haunted house show, ghost hunting show, ones that you watch and know this isn't real. That's not what this book was. And perhaps I was deep in my we just discovered ghost adventures phase and wasn't fully prepared or ready for what this book ended up being. And I have to say that immediately after I finished it, I was left a little disappointed because it wasn't quite what I was expecting. In fact, I finished it and my husband got home from work that day and I kind of gave him a rundown of the entire plot. I swear I talked to him for 30 minutes about what I thought this book was going to be and what it actually was. And I just needed to get those initial feelings of disappointment off of my chest. That is not to say that this is not a good book. I did enjoy it. I would recommend reading it, especially if you are the type of person like me that loves watching a ghost hunting show. That is definitely the audience for this book. But I will say that I ended it and I just kind of had to sit there for a minute like, well, that's not what I was expecting. In fact, one of the things that drew me to it in the first place was one of the reviews, the little review blurbs on the back of the book said it was kind of like a Russian doll of a story, that there were different layers to. Definitely the truth. But they also drew a comparison to The Haunting of Hill House. And I love The Haunting of Hill House. And do I understand that comparison? Yes. But I was expecting something more closely akin to that. I don't know. I guess I thought like literally like that than what it was. I know I keep talking like in vague circles here, but I don't want to give too much of it away until we get into spoiler territory, which we are about to, because I want to elaborate further on my thoughts about this book. I will say though, again, I do recommend this. This is one that will make you think. This is not a book that you will stop thinking about immediately after. You won't finish it and then just put it back on your shelf and go, oh, okay. This is one that does have a lot of layers to it and asks a lot of really interesting questions. So all that to say, while I didn't vibe with it right off the bat, it is still a book that I would recommend if you like horror, if you are into scientific experiments, things like that. If you watched Lost, read this book. I don't know. Why do I always talk about Lost? Because it's my favorite show. Whatever. But I would recommend it. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this one. I wonder if I'm alone in thinking like this wasn't what I went into it thinking it would be. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes you do need a book that subverts your expectations. So I'm curious to see what others think. So we are now entering into more spoiler territory here. If you don't want to know any specific plot details about this book, this is where I am going to leave you. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to know a little bit more, stay tuned. All right, so here we go. Like I said, I wanted more overt, like spooky paranormal things. And while there definitely was paranormal activity in this book, it did not really follow that kind of trail to like a traditional haunted house vibe. And that's what I was expecting. We definitely like turned way more heavily into the scientific experiments and scientific aspects of what was going on in the Foundation House. So I was so hooked when the first night that they experienced like actual activity within the house, they saw this like tall, ghostly woman that was like attacking them. Things start flying around the house and everything. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is like some poltergeist level stuff going on here. And that's kind of what the characters thought too. They were like, wow, there really is something going on here. Even the skeptic Claire can't really find a way to replicate what it is that they experienced. Then, of course, you have the obligatory, some of the stuff was faked happening from the team. There's a lot of infighting and arguments, you know, and that I did expect. There's always some sort of like interpersonal drama in all of these ghost shows, and they definitely lean heavily into that. At one point after the night where everything goes awry in the house, they all flee. They like leave because they're so scared. And of course, there's the question of, are we going to go back? Are we going to continue this? And it's actually Claire the skeptic that ends up pushing everybody more towards like, we have to find out what's going on here. I don't have an explanation for this activity. My scientific mind, I can't wrap it around this. I want to know what's going on. One of my favorite characters in the book was Jessica, or Rashida, her actual name, the one that was more of the social media presence. She has a lot of correspondences via text with her sister and over email about like, you have a child, please don't do anything crazy. I need you to make it out of this alive. And she's kind of more torn, like, do I actually devote myself to this or do I run for the hills now that some actual dangerous stuff is starting to happen? But of course she makes the choice to go back in, and all of the characters find themselves in a weird situation that they and I did not expect them to be in. At a certain point in this book, they all end up in an underground labyrinth spiral that is like this weird time loop. Yes, like a time loop. Time does not work the way it does in the real world or up above in this weird labyrinth tunnel that is like kind of paranormal, that perhaps this paranormal presence is using to toy with them. It is connected to this weird Foundation House group that was there. It gets a lot more science-y than I was expecting. And the real horrors of this are like internal, kind of cerebral, what is the human mind capable of comprehending. I really liked it in that way because it was wildly different than anything else that I'd ever read, but it wasn't quite the Haunting of Hill House that the blurb described to me. Of course, there's a lot of tragedy, and you do get some backstory about why each of these people is kind of drawn to this show in their own way, but I was expecting a lot more ghosts and a lot less tunnel labyrinth monolith. I know this is the spoiler zone. I really don't want to reveal the entire ending of this book and every beat for beat, like character motivation. I do think this is one that you have to read and decide for yourself what you think about it. But do know going into it that it will ask you to kind of like think more deeply about the science aspect of the paranormal. You're not going to get just like, ooh, and then the door slammed closed and there was a ghost. Like, it's not going to be a lot like that. It's kind of a bait and switch in a way that the whole investigation, they do get some evidence like that, but then they end up like uncovering something that their minds couldn't comprehend. My mind couldn't really comprehend at the time. That's why I was sat there afterwards like, huh? Now that more time has passed, I am more like open to seeing the positives about this book and really appreciate it for not being the cheesy ghost story I thought it was going to be. I think that, you know, it was really interesting that the author kind of challenged what you expect of a ghost hunting show or any sort of investigation of a haunted location. So this is where I'm going to leave you guys today. If you are intrigued at all about reading episode 13, definitely go pick it up. Like I said, it's almost 500 pages, but I flew through it. The way it is written, the writing style just lends itself to like a good binge. It's funny that this is about a TV show that you would binge watch, but yet I ended up binge reading this. It's really that kind of book that you don't really want to put down. You want to find out the answers to what's going on here. You'll definitely be seeing me again for more horror book reviews and other horror content. You can also follow me on Instagram at HHNCarson. Thank you so much for watching. Go pick up a good book, and I will see you guys next time.